Karen, you better be glad I love you. Oh, okay, so there's been some requests for how I do my planning, that sort of stuff. So here I am. It's been a while since I made a video. Maybe I forgot how. Hey, Ritzy. Puppy needs attention. Okay, so I guess I'll jump into it, but figure I'll show you what I got little man today. We were at Lowe's, and every time we go to Lowe's, he sees this one type of cactus, and he calls it my cupcake, my cupcake. I guess because it's got this little flower on top of it, which I'm like 95% sure isn't real. Anyways, I've got it in some orchid mix that I had. I probably need to add some peat moss and some perlite and some sand to this, but I just got it tonight, so I'm okay with it. But yes, this is now Ronan's cupcake cactus. We'll see how it goes. Ritzy, going somewhere. We just went out. Go somewhere. Go. Okay. So, I guess let's jump into it. First place I start is here on the almanac. It's got my zip code entered in, or it did. Hold on. Alright, here we go. So, it says that in this area, last spring frost is going to be March 29th. Give or take about 2 weeks, because in my experience, we tend to get like a late frost somewhere in the early part of April. A lot of the times people say that you're not supposed to plant until after Easter. I don't know if that's true, but last years I've been doing it, it has been true. So whatever this thing tells me, which right here you can see it clear as day, March 29th, I add 2 weeks to. So if we go to a calendar, here's March 29th, 1, 2, okay? And this is what 50% chance of last frost. Now this is just telling me my last spring frost date. There's another place in the almanac I think this is the link. Yeah, it says April 2nd here, so still give or take April 16th would be mine. But there's a specific tool I'm looking for. Let me see if I can find it real quick. That's not it. They've got a few different ways of doing it. I think here at Dave's Garden they have another tool. Apparently I can't type tonight. Yeah, this is a good one here. Alright, so Greenville right here. Boom. I like this one a little bit better because this is your 10% chance of frost. That means like it's extremely unlikely you're going to get a frost. That's April 12th, which coincides with kind of my April 16th. Even waiting until this date, I want to say it was last year, we had a late frost that kind of killed, no, the year before last. And it really took its toll on my harvest and my plants. So that's why I kind of am following this a little bit more. 50% chance of frost, that means half the time you're not going to get a frost, but half the time you are. And then 90% chance of frost means you're really going to get one, so don't plant before this. Now there's people who have covers. Brandy has been talking about how long she's had her plants in the group right now, which she's got all the ways to protect it, so why not? But that's not a luxury I have. So I'm going, this is the where I'm getting a lot of my information from right here. And then I like to confirm that with a planting calendar. So let's say, for example, let's just say tomatoes, right? I'll scroll up here, see what we're looking at. So this is start seeds indoors. This is plant seedlings or plant transplants, and then starting direct sowing. So in my area, tomatoes you cannot direct sow. You're going to transplant somewhere in this area of April 5th to 26th, which we just kind of covered. I'm splitting the difference there down the middle. And if you want to do like phases of the moon planting, you're going to wait until April 20th because this is too early. And that's to transplant into your garden. But to start getting things ready, shh, little man's waking up. But you should start planting them somewhere around here. As far as getting the transplants ready. Now this is rough, give or take. Since we're using the example of tomatoes, let me grab a tomato pack. I've got a pepper pack here in front of me. I know I got some tomatoes around here somewhere. Okay. So, pepper pack, tomato pack. Sticking with the tomato pack for now because that's what our example was. Start indoors 6 weeks before last frost. Let's go back over here. Okay, we're gonna ixnay this information. We just kind of wanted it to semi coincide, but the fact that this is gonna be something we can double check against is nice. Let's go here to Google Calendar, right? So here's where it says 50% chance last frost, whereas here it says April 4th. This was April 13th, so it's roughly a 2-week span difference, 9 days. That's me adding 2 extra weeks to it. This website says this, says this. I've seen other ones say a little bit earlier, a little bit later, but this is what I decided would be my 2 weeks point. So that's 50% chance of last frost. And then I actually go forward. Hi, Ritzy. She's getting all up in my grill. She likes attention when Ronan's no longer asleep. Anyway, here's my 50% chance frost. Here's my 90% chance last frost after I've added 2 weeks. And then there should be a 10% chance last frost in here somewhere. Whoopsie. Yeah, it's in here somewhere. I know it is. Okay, whatever. So rather than use the 10 or the 50% chance of last frost, which is considered your last frost date, that's what they're talking about on the pack, I add roughly 2 weeks to mine. And since that's right here, let's count Ahicharpita. Start indoors in bright light 8 to 12 weeks before last frost date. Now, when I was selling at the farmer's market, my plants were a little bit bigger than I'd like, both for transportation, for transplanting, for stuff like that. So I've decided I'm going to go err on the shorter end of that, so 8 to 10 weeks instead of 12 weeks. So what I'll do is I'll go back 8 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So if I wanted to start my peppers 8 weeks before my last frost date, I would do that on February the 16th. But personally, with my late frosts and stuff like that, I know the soil temperatures aren't quite getting hot enough for that initially. So I gave it another 2 weeks. And then here you see I've got some of my peppers planted. This is what I'm doing most of my peppers. Now we can go look at the tomatoes, which says start indoors 6 weeks before last frost. So if we go back here to my last frost, my 50% last frost chance, go back 6 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, you see no tomatoes there. What you'll see is I'm starting to get my tomatoes in here. That's because I'm not using my 50% chance last frost. No. In my area, these late last frosts, they've burned me too many times. I'm no longer using this number. I'm using this number. So let's count these back using this number instead of this number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh yeah. So that is when I'm getting a lot of this stuff in here. And then over here, we're getting the tomatoes. So it's 2 days later, but I'm getting the tomatoes. And a large portion of that's just that I'm planting so many seeds out. I got to get these planted before I get these. Okay? So here's all these, on my first round of all these peppers and stuff, right? Those were requiring 8 weeks. So let's go back. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's only 6 weeks. 7, and then here's 8. So as you can see, I'm using that 90% frost chance. That way I don't have to worry. Okay? So that's how I determine how I'm going to do round 1. Is it's 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever the package tells me. But I use that 90% last frost date. And I'm not using the 90% last frost date that I'm getting off the internet. I'm using 90% last frost date that is 2 weeks past that. No, if I weren't so paranoid about frost in my area, I'd probably go with that 90% frost date. But I am. So, since I'm fully willing to admit that I'm a little paranoid, here's how I would do it if I weren't doing it commercially. Since I'm doing it commercially, I have to simplify things. I do 2 rounds of sowing. I do that 90% frost as my first round, and then 2 weeks later I plant a second round. Now, if I were doing this like as an everyday average person, or if I had more room to do it commercially, here's how I would do it. Instead of doing 2, I would do 3, maybe 4. I would do 2 weeks from the 90% frost, just like I'm doing. I would do 2 weeks earlier than that. I would do the 2 weeks later, so that's my initial round 1 and 2, plus 2 weeks earlier. And then I would do 1 2 weeks even before that one. And then I might even do 1 2 weeks after the one I was just talking about. and doing those 5 plantings of a lot smaller numbers of seeds. So maybe if I were planning on planting, say, 60 of a particular plant, I would still do 60. It's just broken up into 5 sessions instead of 2. Maybe I would go a little bit more, maybe up to 100. So instead of planting 30 plants in 2 sessions, getting 60, I could plant 20 in 5 and get 100. The reasoning behind that is we've already established why I do the 90%. We've already established why I do 2 weeks after the 90%. I would do 2 weeks after the 2 weeks, or 4 weeks after my 90%, because a lot of times our summers just kind of, the heat hits us immediately. So I'm not entirely sure when's the last time I can sow certain crops. I've figured it out with broccoli and a couple other things, but the more you can stagger your plantings, the more your harvest will be staggered. And that'll be huge later on. And then going the other way, well, maybe we get a really early summer, or maybe you can plant certain things sooner than you realize, but by going so much before and so much later, you're gonna explore all your options. And if it's a cold year one year and you've got broccoli in later, okay, great. But if it's a really hot year and it gets hot early, your broccoli might bolt, but something you planted early will benefit. So either way, you're putting yourself in a situation where you can win. Hey, girl. Hey. Who's a pretty girl? All right. I'll take you out after this. Sit down. Be good. Sit. Sit. All right. Okay. So now you see how I make certain determinations or whatever. The next question is, how do I organize it? Well, I pull each pack out and I read what I just told you. And then I go here to Google Calendar, and it's pretty easy from here. We're going to say I have to plant something on the 9th. I don't, but let's just say I do. So it says chores here. We're going to change that to plant business. And then we're going to say plant puppy dog eyes, because that's what I'm getting stared at with. And we're going to say that's round 1. Okay? Says does not repeat, at a time. I believe I can come in here. I could come in here and say every 2 weeks, and then let's say like I wanted that to be my round 1, and let's say I wanted another one here as round 2. Okay? Round 1, round 2. Now let's say I wanted another one. This would give me another 2 weeks. This would give the 5 that I talked about earlier, but we'll just set it to 2. And they're both going to be labeled round 1, unfortunately. That's the downside of doing it this way. I think if I go to update it, it'll... Yeah, there we go. Boom, round 1, round 2. So, yeah, that's pretty easy. And then you just do that for every single thing you're going to plant. And then it's all there for you. And some of these things may need some stratification. This actually requires some soaking. So I'll soak it here so it's ready to plant here. Some things I'm getting requires me to use sulfuric acid, so I'm planning to buy it while I'm doing a double at work on this Sunday. Boil and then soak, boil and then soak, soak in acid. So you can see I'm just getting ready for this planting day with this action, this action, this action, and then these actions. Some of these require cold stratification, so it's just written in there. A lot of it's a factor of doing the research, reading the packet, and then having the resources to kind of go get your 90% chance last frost and all that, and then kind of being like, well, is this really accurate of my area? I'll tell you a little secret. I feel like everyone around me, even like less than a mile away, it seems like their lilies start blooming 2 weeks before mine. Their Bradford pears 2 weeks before the ones my grandma planted. I'm not calling those mine. Some of the fig trees in this area start leafing out like their brown turkeys or before my brown turkeys. I've estimated that I'm about 2 weeks behind someone in my area. So I had 2 weeks. While technically, if I look it up on the almanac, I'm in 8A, I think of myself as being in 7B. I don't know exactly what it is, but I have noticed that I seem to be kind of on at a low apex point where the land around me seems to be a little bit higher. And I think maybe the cold air kind of settles in and I don't really know. This is more observation and theorization. But anyways, I hope you guys found this helpful. I hope I didn't ramble too long. And I hope you learned something.